Hello and a very warm welcome to this episode of On the Spot, the 15-minute coffee break shaped conversational section about all things sort of business change, business analysis related and everything in between. I'm really, really pleased to say we have Dr. Penny Pullan with us today. I'm sure many of you will know Penny from her keynote presentations, her workshops, her online courses, all of those sorts of things, very, very well known in our community. And today we're going to be talking about designing for collaboration. So Penny, thanks very much for being here today.
It's lovely to be with you, and what fun! 15 minutes.
I know.
Away.
Well, it is always fun, Penny. But my main concern is I don't think we've ever spoken for such a short time, so we're going to have to be really disciplined with the clock. So,
okay.
So the first question, Penny, that struck me when we were discussing this topic, which is a really, really interesting one, but is what types of collaboration can be designed for? Because it's quite a broad brush sort of topic. So what would your thoughts on that be?
Well, my thoughts are pretty much all, but of course you can't design every aspect down to the nth degree. And I should probably explain that I'm coming from the perspective of having spent pretty much the last year locked away, well, not quite locked away, but sort of a bit in purdah, writing a book all about this whole thing of designing for collaboration, and especially thinking about workshops. So probably most of what I'll say going forward will be thinking about collaborative workshops, whether they are in person, virtual, or a hybrid.
Yeah, which is probably, we're going to hear more and more about hybrid as we sort of return to some level of social contact.
Can't wait.
Yeah, me too. And I should say, of course, if you're watching this live, please do feel free to add a comment in the feed, and we will bring up the comments, or as many comments as we can on the screen. Do keep in mind, of course, if you add a comment and we bring it up on the screen, it will have your LinkedIn photo and name and so on there. So hybrid and conferences. So hybrid and workshops, I should say. So
yep.
I suppose that leads me on to think about really stakeholders, because it strikes me that, I mean, if I think about designing a usual, like an in-person workshop, I tend to think about different styles. So if we're designing for collaboration, hybrid or whatever, how important is really knowing our stakeholders, and how can we sort of achieve that?
It's absolutely fundamental. Because you want to know the people, you want to know what their preferences are when it comes, if you're doing a virtual or hybrid session, what are their preferences with regards to communication, virtual and so on. You want to have an idea of where they're coming from for their context, be able to see a little bit of the world from their perspective. So much that you really need to know. But of course, anyone who's knows anything about business analysis will know that actually stakeholders are absolutely fundamental. You need to know them. You need to get to know them. You need to understand the world from their perspective to be able to design for the best collaboration that you can have.
Yeah, because I suppose different people will come at the subject matter from different perspectives, and there will be different ways of teasing information out of them.
Yes.
Sort of eliciting without interrogation, in a way, without sort of dragging people through kicking and screaming.
Yes, I know when I started, I used to ask so many questions that it did seem more like the Spanish Inquisition than actually eliciting requirements. So I'm a little bit gentler now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, are you able to suggest some tools, ideas or concepts that are particularly helpful when designing for collaboration? And I suppose actually I split this into two parts, if possible, Penny. There's sort of general patterns and trends that we should look out for, but also anything that's particularly relevant or more relevant in a virtual and or hybrid type environment.
Okay, I'm going to start off with answering things around virtual and hybrid. I think one thing to think of is if you're designing collaboration is how you mix and match between doing things live at the same time, like us having this conversation, but also asynchronous, which is a big word that we're hearing a lot about and that I've been talking about for years, and suddenly seems to everybody else is beginning to talk about it in 2021, which is how can you design collaboration so some aspects are done together and then other aspects are done in people's own time, or at times to suit them, perhaps is a better way. So we're not thinking about people working in line. How can you do things at separate times that then you come together and then work on those together? So, and there are lots of collaboration tools that support that as well. And I'm reading particularly for people who are introverted, who like to think and really polish things on their own first. It can be quite good to have periods of working together, but then also periods where you're apart, but you have time to think and work together using collaboration tools. So that can be quite useful. Something that works really well, both in when you're virtual or hybrid and when you're in a room, is to use visuals. Help people to see what they mean with ideas. Help things to stick. Help people to get a holistic view of the whole thing in one place quickly.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Think about facilitating collaboration. How are you going to do that? And one aspect that came up in the book is how much should you, as the facilitator or the business analyst running a workshop, for example, how much should you aim to be in control? So lots and lots of BAs really like feeling, I've got this in control. I've got, we've got 5 minutes of that, and then we've got 5 minutes of that. Yep. It looks like perhaps you've been there, Adrian.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you probably know me well enough to know my sort of natural approach is to be a bit of a control freak is the wrong word, because that implies I want to control other people, but I like trying to control lots of uncertainty. So I have lots of, even like when we could all travel, I had like checklists for what to pack. And, this is the length of time I need to go, but if I'm going from Heathrow or Gatwick and all of these types of things. So I think there is that element to it. And
absolutely. But if you try to control everything,
exactly,
then you completely squish the collaboration.
Exactly, and I think that's it. It's the tool for the context, and there needs to be that spontaneity in the collaboration. But just rewinding, because one thing that really particularly jumped out at me of the many things there, Penny, was the asynchronous element, and I do think that's so important, because it's very easy, like almost, I think, at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone just went to complete synchronous.
Far too much.
And actually, and I mean, I'll bring here a comment from my good friend Vince, who says that time to think is so underrated. And I suppose that asynchronous means that people can actually reflect rather than having to sort of do everything with a self view of themselves on the screen as well.
You can turn off the self view in most video collaboration tools. So yeah, absolutely. Yes, but also humans do not work incredibly well if they spend the whole time sitting down in front of a screen. I mean, I'm sitting here in a darkened studio in part of my office with 3 LED light banks shining at me. It's not healthy. Perhaps we can do it 2-3 hours a day, but there are people doing it from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., which is mad. So, think about how can we help people to be effective, to be productive, to be the best version of themselves. They're not going to be that if they're scrunched up with sore backs and they haven't moved for hours.
Well, that's another really interesting point, isn't it? And I think, because you mentioned collaboration technology as well, and of course, one of the great things is we have so many tools. And I mean, one thing I've found myself doing more and more often, but probably by accident, just because it's a technology I started to engage with, is communicating asynchronously with video. So
Yes.
I will, like, if there's a presentation or something that is more complex, I will actually record a screencast of me going through it once, and the person can watch it, rewind it, and and that's you can just do that with whatever meeting platform you have. It's not it's not
Absolutely.
it's not a tricky one. So
can we go back? I know this is making you feel uncomfortable because you like to be in control, but let's go back to control. In the book, I talk about how people often try to do this. We've got to be in control. Oh, I've got to be in control, actually, and have this mentality. And I find people, when they're leading collaboration, when they're facilitating, that actually leads to huge amounts of stress. Whereas if you can switch from I've got to be in control to we are in this together, then actually all of a sudden it means that if it feels like you're walking through a field of black treacle, then just say, actually, this isn't working too well at the moment. It feels like we're all, a herd of elephants walking through a field of golden syrup or whatever it might be. Actually, it's fine. You don't have to be perfect. So it's letting go of that illusion of perfect control. And instead, yes, doing all the preparation, all the checklists, they're great. As Linda says, they're being organized. But let's actually draw people in. Let's remind people, this is you. I'm doing this. I'm here to help you to come up with the best things that you can.
And that's it, isn't it? Because I think for me, that organization is about cultivating the conditions in which innovation can actually thrive. And it's important to make sure that doesn't overspill into a control freak. Although Vince, who I work with quite a lot, says, no, control freak is fairly accurate. So there we go. First-hand critique there. But and so bringing in a comment from Lynn. So Lynn says, virtual conference collaboration is great, but can only get you so far. Still need that body language to really help the collaboration along. Can you be less organized too face-to-face? So I suppose that, there's that sort of underlying feeling that virtual collaboration is always going to be inferior to face-to-face. Do you think that virtual will or hybrid will ever be on par with, or are they just different?
They're different, and actually hybrid is harder than virtual. Now, I think for some things, virtual can be just as good. I think some things, perhaps it's better, but perhaps that's because you can access people who wouldn't necessarily be able to be there live in person. But we just need to be better at running things virtually in a way that works with people. Yeah. There are some people doing it really well, but there are most people doing it really badly.
And that's it, isn't it? I think, or the approach I firmly believe is the question shouldn't be how can we convert this real world thing into virtual. Yeah. The question should be what outcome do we want, and how can we use the virtual capabilities we have to create the best possible experience and the best outcome. And those are
understand the problem.
Yeah, and exactly.
Understand your stakeholders.
Exactly.
Design what's going to work. It's bog standard business analysis, really.
It really is. It really is. So we bring back we come full circle to business analysis as I predicted that we would. So Penny, our time is almost up. 15 minutes is punishingly short, but I am certain people will want to stay in touch with you. They'll want to follow you. I've already mentioned your I know you have many books, but Virtual Leadership, of which I actually always, people think I'm lying, but it is always in arm's reach. So there you go. I've proved it really is in arm's reach now.
And look, I even use it myself. Yeah. I'm about to rewrite it for the second edition.
To my shame, I don't have any sticky notes in there, but it's well worn. So how can people stay in touch with you? How can they follow you, find out more about what you do?
As they're on LinkedIn, it makes sense to connect on LinkedIn. If you connect, please say hello and explain who you are, because so many connection requests that at the moment I'm ignoring most of them. But if you are somebody who's interested in this stuff, absolutely, I'd love to connect. That would be super. I have a book coming out in July, and the BA Summit, which normally happens in January, will be happening in July in conjunction with that book launch, which is all around collaboration. It's called Making Workshops Work, creative collaboration for our time.
Fantastic. I can't wait to get my pre-order of that so that I can get my my review on Amazon for you as well, Penny. So
thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny. It is always an absolute pleasure to chat with you. If you are watching live on LinkedIn or on the YouTube recording, if you go to the Blackmetric YouTube channels, there are other stuff that Penny and I have done together, including a video we took, gosh, the last time we were at not quite the last time we were at a conference together, when you had that huge room full of people and we had the chat afterwards. So like, actually in the same room. And if you are watching and want to see more episodes, if you go to onthespot.today, that's onthespot.today, then all the recordings are archived there with transcripts as well. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Penny. Take care, stay safe, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.